Okay, our next question comes from Sean Gately, who asks, what else needs to be done to prevent Congress from doing an end run around the balanced budget amendment? Sean, I think what you may be referring to is that in the past there have been statutory spending limitations that Congress has circumvented or in the end repealed or modified to the point that the spending limitations didn't do anything. The most prominent recent example can be found in the Gramm-Rudman-Hollings spending limitation legislation enacted in 1985. It was added to in 1987, but it was essentially repealed, or at least gutted, in 1990. Gramm-Rudman-Hollings was a great proposal. It established certain spending cuts that Congress had to achieve by a specific date, and said that if Congress hadn't specified where those cuts would be made on a certain percentage basis by the dates in question, that the comptroller of the currency of the United States would have to step in and seize or sequester the funds at issue. They were across-the-board cuts. Now, this was a great proposal, and it would have brought us into a new era of fiscal responsibility. But unfortunately, when it came time for the really difficult cuts to be made, Congress just repealed it or gutted it. That's exactly why we need a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, to make these things permanent, to make them more difficult. To get around a constitutional amendment by its very nature it becomes part of the Constitution, and as such, it can't be repealed, it can't be circumvented unless you amend the Constitution again, which is intentionally a difficult thing to do. Our next question comes from Michael Johnson, who's concerned about what would happen during a time of war if this balanced budget amendment were intact. And he asks, what does your amendment do in time of war? It's a great question. We deal with this in this amendment by specifying that during the period of, in the case of a declared war by Congress against a nation state, the balanced budget amendment's limitations would be suspended so as to allow Congress to fully fund that war effort. So we've taken care of that in this case. Now, we haven't had a declared war against a nation state, and I say against a nation state so as to distinguish this from something like the war on drugs. We haven't had such a declaration of war since 1941. These things are rare, but in the case of a war, we want to make sure that we have the ability to fully fund our troops and make sure that we're able to carry out the war effort successfully.